Welcome to Bitter to Better, the podcast that guides you through the challenging yet transformative journey of divorce. I'm Angie, and today we're entering the craziest roller coaster ever. We're navigating the emotional roller coaster. Discover practical tools to manage your emotions, find hope in the chaos, and embrace the journey from bitter to better. You're not alone on this ride. So let's journey together toward healing and renewal.
Awesome. We are back with two of our wonderful panelists. We've got Tracy and we have Chris. Would you ladies be so kind as to explain who you are and what you do before we get into our fabulous episode this time of inspirational stories?
Go ahead, Chris.
I was waiting to be called on. Hi, Angie. I'm Chris Calla. I'm the founder of the Wilderness Compass, and I am a transformational life coach and also a divorce coach for women. I work with women at every stage of divorce, whether it's separation, whether it's pre-litigation, helping them find solutions to strategy, going into meeting their attorneys, and then recovery afterwards throughout that process.
Fabulous. So grateful to have you here. And Tracy, let's get you.
Absolutely. I'm Tracy, Sassy Success. I help women start digital businesses. And by digital, I mean online businesses so that you can work from home and be your own woman. That's me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here and sharing your expertise in this series. So today we are diving into inspirational stories. Now, when you're in the thick of it, you're not perhaps seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I know each one of us has gone through a difficult journey, and here we are smiling, but let me tell you, going through it, we haven't always been smiling. So the importance of sharing our inspirational stories, getting to the other side, is so critical because it inspires that hope that this dark time that you might be in right now does not last forever. And we want to focus in and hone in on the hope and resilience that going through this tumultuous time can provide for you. So let's start off with Tracy. And if you can share perhaps personal journey of transformation, highlighting, some challenges you faced and a lesson, and what's got you to this smiling, sassy woman that we see here today.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for noticing. As my dad said, he paid a lot of money for these teeth, so I might as well show them off. Yes, my life has been interesting. I've actually been through two separate divorces. One, I guess, we never really were married, so that made this split easier. But my second relationship, we definitely were married. I brought one child to the relationship, and we had two more, so three kids in total, and 10 years together. What ended up happening through that whole 10 years is I was busy being strong. And so by strong, I mean staying in a bad situation way longer than I needed to be. And so in the process, I found myself as not only staying in a negative situation, but I was actually the breadwinner for most of it. And at times in my life, I felt like not only did I have three children, I had four. And also, a very responsible job, lots of responsibility going on. So my relationship, my strength, that I regarded as a strength, got to that tipping point of where it was actually a weakness. And so it wasn't until after 10 years of marriage to this man, he developed a drug habit, chose drugs over us and the cushy life that I had set up for him, crazy as he was, I guess. But thankfully, he did that, and thankfully, he left, because it was really the turning point for me to find how strong I had been, and how my strength was actually turning into toxicity of not wanting to let go of something that wasn't good for me to begin with. And so the lesson in it was really looking at what are my traits, when should they be used, when should they not be used. I mean, is it necessarily good to stick in a situation that's not good for you simply because you feel like it's the best thing for the kids, or I feel like how could I be a person without this relationship. And so what I'm really trying to say is that sometimes when one story closes and the next story begins, um, that's the golden opportunity to see what actually is available for you. And so my transformation from that situation allowed me to look at myself and to really place more value on myself, place more value on my skills, place more value on my emotions, and look at some of my patterns of caretaking other people. It's given me the opportunity to really evaluate myself as a person, and also open up space for others to care for me. I'm now in a new relationship, which is much more balanced. I don't need to caretake anybody. Nobody needs to caretake me. But I'm now in a marriage where, hey, we can work together as partners, as equals. We can both be strong together, and we can both um, shine a light on where our strengths actually are. And so that's why I have the smile on my face now, because had I not gone through that dark time and have my husband leave me, I might still be being strong in that toxic situation, and I wouldn't be able to experience the fullness of the life that I have now, and my ability to create a life I actually love living. Working from home, in my pajamas. I actually put on pants for this meeting today, but a lot of times I am in my, my cat pajamas, leopard spots, and the whole 9 yards. Um, and yeah, I know it's kind of silly. That's my personality. I'm kind of silly, but it all started with a bad situation and being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, the light that ended up not being a train. So yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my goodness. And well, first of all, I love that you're not wearing your cat pajamas now, but you know what? That would have been great for a laugh too. Um, it's incredible that we can we make it through the other side, and we realize that that light coming towards us is not a freight train. It's actually a light that's there to help us. Isn't it amazing? Yay. And yay for you. Like, that's amazing that, you went through, not that you went through the rough times. I mean, that's sucky, but, it's bittersweet. And we, we realize that we go through these hardships, not for the sake of going through hardships, but for the lesson that's there. So thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my goodness. We never know what's going on within, right? So, oh, wow. And we also, we go through these these rough times, these times of adversity. And I think that's where we get our biggest nuggets of wisdom. Chris, can you share with us a time in your life, a story of um, adversity and transformation that's got you to to being this entrepreneur and person that is eager and passionate for helping others.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. First of all, Tracy, your story is amazing, and much respect to you for looking at the silver lining, as they say, and recognizing that, because some people don't, and they just stay stuck in that misery. And I applaud you. So thank you for sharing that. That's so inspirational. And I know the ladies who are listening are going to take away so many nuggets from that. And as far as my story, very similar. It was, so it's similar in some ways, but some not. At the start of my separation, I was writing actually one of the biggest career highlights of my life. I was a real estate investor, and I had successfully flipped properties and made multiple six-figure income gains. And my family business that I had with my husband was also coming off a fantastic year of gains. And I had just quit my W-2 so that I could concentrate on real estate investing full time. And so from the outside looking in, it looked like I had it all together and had the thriving career. I had this wonderful, stable family life. But like Tracy said, I was very busy making everything look really good and working really hard to keep that image. And what no one saw was the growing tension, behind the scenes in my marriage. And then the unthinkable happened. And on my 50th birthday, I woke up feeling completely lost and heartbroken because my marriage of nearly 20 years had ended in betrayal. And suddenly everything I had built, my marriage, my family, and the future that I thought was very secure was gone. And so that year, what I thought would be my best turned into one of the hardest. And, as I was getting ready to watch my daughter, I remember my daughter was, my oldest daughter was in a dance competition, and she had worked so hard for all her years in dance as a dance mom. Maybe if you are watching and you have ever been a dance mom, you know what it's like when your kids go to national level competition. It was her final performance, and it was at the highest level she could have gotten to. And it was also it was my 50th birthday. It was the last day in the home that I had poured my heart into. And we were getting ready to close on it the next day. And I was getting ready to move. I was so proud of her. It was so surreal. I was so proud of her, but my heart was also shattered. And here I was on this monumental birthday of, 50 or whatever. And I knew my life was about to change very drastically. And it wasn't just about the loss of my marriage. It was the loss of my identity. And I had defined myself by the role of wife and mother and successful entrepreneur, and all that crumbled, and really in the aftermath of that whole divorce, I moved 600 miles away, leaving behind the home that I thought I would live in forever. And I was essentially starting all over from scratch. I was untangling all the intertwined strands of that union that had so many connections. I was at business, financial, legal, administrative, children, property, assets, even my own name. I didn't know what to do. First, it was you feel like you're spinning around in circles. And I really did. At one point, I thought my life was over, and I think, I felt so broken and utterly unsure of who I was. And I began drinking to numb the incredible pain that I was experiencing. And it was usually when my kids were gone, when they would go to see their dad, and I ate poorly, and it was my new full-time job, and I gained a ton of weight. And I had just become really unhealthy. I had been a wife for 2 decades, and now I didn't know who I was outside of that. So it was a terrifying place to be. And I felt really isolated and unsure. And I remember waking up on the day after Christmas in 2022, not remembering anything about the night before because I was so depressed because my kids were gone that I had drank enough wine to make sure I forgot that the night before was even there, because I felt very alone and humiliated and about what my life had become. So one of the hardest steps that I had to take was to force myself to look at myself in the mirror and have an honest talk with me and, about where this behavior was going to lead me. And so most likely it was going to lead me into a lot of further pain and health circumstances and financial circumstances if I didn't get my crap together. I might even end up dead. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of outcomes that could come. And I didn't want my kids to end up having that memory of me. And I thought to myself, I was so afraid to take that first step. Like one of the first thoughts that I had was like, I don't have time to focus on me. I have kids to take care of. I have to get myself situated financially. I have this life that's falling apart. And it felt like there was no room for self-care or healing amidst any of that chaos. But I realized that I couldn't be the mom or the businesswoman or the person that I wanted to be if I didn't make time for me first. So my big lesson was that I had to prioritize myself, even when I felt like it was impossible. So I made the decision to invest in myself, and I didn't know how to be alone. So I started to just date myself and took myself out to dinner, like to the movies, to do things that I hadn't allowed myself to do before, because I was always too busy being like the perfect wife or mother or, person in the community. And it was great because I moved far away and I had the opportunity to just like redo me. And I had to learn how to enjoy my own company, most importantly. And that was not easy because I basically was a stranger to myself for a little while there. And there were days I felt like I was very uncomfortable and awkward. And I just kind of pushed through because I knew I had to. And I knew I needed to build my health back up mentally and physically. But like I said before, I was exhausted physically, emotionally, mentally. And I thought, like, how I can barely get out of bed some days. How am I supposed to take on this monumental task of rebuilding me and my life? And I wasn't in a place where I felt like I could even walk around the block. So I had to start somewhere. So I forced myself to take small steps, literally. And I started walking daily. And that was like my first commitment to myself, to just show up for me in that tiny step by step, day by day way. And then I started to build momentum on top of that. And one of the most pivotal moments in my journey was that decision to invest in my own healing and rediscover my identity. I had no idea what to do or how to begin. How do I like rebuild my life when I don't even know what I want? But I learned that you don't have to have all the answers. Like for somebody like me, who's a very type A person, who likes to know like 18 steps ahead of me, taking that first small step had to be just enough. And so clarity comes with action and not the other way around. And that's a big one that I learned, and actually just said something to one of my clients today. I said, diversion is the death of action too. So if you constantly get diverted and you don't, focus in, you'll never get anywhere. So I leaned into like a lot of books, a lot of podcasts, a lot of coaching programs, and I surrounded myself with people who had been where I was. And this is to your point, Angie, with the community. I really needed to be around other people who were already further ahead of where I had come from, but who could help inspire me to stay connected. And so business coaches, life coaches, fashion coaches, styling coaches, therapy, all the things, and just dove headfirst into anything that could help me. I started to get really super hungry once I got into it, and just kind of became addicted to just figuring it out. And so it really wasn't just about rebuilding financially, it was about healing my heart and mind. And that was really just something that helped me to force myself to connect with other people, because I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I don't know about you, but it's hard to make new friends, especially when you're in a new situation after that. But that commitment to making new friendships and going to new places and trying new things and stepping outside of my comfort zone really helped me get to where I am now, which is 60 pounds lighter. And I haven't drank a single drop of alcohol since December of 2022. And I am so grateful that I now get to help other women going through the same similar struggles that I have faced and turning my pain into purpose like that. So.
Oh, wow. That hits me in so many different spots. Like it's you turned your hunger into, like, from food into your knowledge. So, and that was like, how exciting. How exciting is that? It's just brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's just beautiful for the other women that are going to be watching this to see how they'll be able to see themselves at least in one area, maybe not in an entire area of your story, but in little bits and pieces from your story and from Tracy's as well. That, you know what, you can be at the very bottom, but you make that choice to just even switch just a tiny little bit. May not like the thing, but you do it anyway. You choose your heart. What is your heart? Is your heart staying where you're at in the muck and the mire, or is it moving forward and rediscovering who that bright shining star is within you? You may not feel like a shining star, but that's okay. You can borrow. For those of you in the audience, borrow from myself, borrow from Chris, borrow from Tracy. And until you have enough of that light that's fanned, that your flame is bright enough to shine on its own. We're here to help fan your flame. So, ladies, one quick takeaway. What's one piece of advice as the viewers watching that they can? What's one pivotal thing that can move them just one little bit further? Chris, let's start off with you.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So the one thing they can do is really just perspective, I think, is a big thing, is asking yourself the question, if you're going to say something about your situation, and this is really going back to the first time I was on one of your podcasts, Angie, we talked about mindset. It's really just working on your mind, because it all starts in here. I really think that if you can take what's in your mind and turn it from something negative into a positive, like for me, it was, instead of saying my life is over at 50, now I say I got to start my life over at 50, and it was the most amazing thing ever. So those different definitions really do help us reframe the way that we are going to look at any situation.
Absolutely. It's so key. Tracy, what is one piece of information that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Chris, because everything starts in our mind as a thought before it becomes an action. And I would say the first thing to work on is trust and belief in yourself. I went from I was a teenage mom. I was a mom at 16 years old, so I went from living in my parents' house to my own house with a son and a husband at the age of 16. And then, subsequent divorces and what have you. I have not spent one day on this planet alone. I don't know what that was like. And when I was in this situation, I didn't have the belief in myself to know how I could do it alone. And when I got in the situation of when he finally left me with 3 kids, I found out that I had been doing it alone the whole time. I found that belief in myself, and I began to trust in myself, being able to see what I was capable of.
Absolutely. And you know what? My biggest takeaway, my divorce was my biggest teacher. And one thing that I vowed to myself is that I would not stay bitter. Well, at that time, I said I wasn't going to become bitter. I pretty sure that I was just a little bit bitter for a while, but I promised myself there is no way I am going to stay bitter because my ex-mother-in-law still to this day is a very has a negative outlook on life, and I'm like, not me. No, not going to happen. So that was my biggest takeaway from my divorce. And you know what? We all have these lessons that we learn because, as we've kind of all touched on, is that we don't just go through painful moments to just go through painful moments. We have the choice to turn our pain into purpose. And that is something that this podcast, Bitter to Better, is all about, is finding those nuggets of truths and finding the silver lining. Because as Chris pointed out, you know, it's just that little bit of a shift in perspective. And as Tracy pointed out, we just need that confidence to come back. And as I shared, you know what, you can borrow from us, borrow from each one of us until you are able to rise a little bit further in your journey. So with that, I want to thank Chris and I want to thank Tracy so much for joining once again on the Bitter to Better podcast. We'd love to hear from you, the audience members. Please share with us what nuggets of truth you found within this episode, and let's get to see what nuggets you're putting into practice going forward. So thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. It means the world to myself as well as to the audience. And speaking of which, thank you to those watching. Without you, this would have no meaning. So thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this station, to this channel, share and comment. We want to hear from you and hear your feedback. What did you take away from this episode? And as we move forward, you're going to want to tune in to the next episode of Bitter to Better, where we tackle the intricate world of co-parenting. In co-parenting tips and challenges, our empowering panel will share essential strategies to help you navigate the tough terrain of sharing parenting responsibilities post-divorce. From communication hurdles to scheduling conflicts, discover how to transform challenges into opportunities for positive co-parenting experiences. Yes, it is possible. Don't miss out on this episode and this chance to turn your co-parenting journey from bitter to better.